The rich lady laughed when I ate her leftovers. She humiliated me, screamed in my face, called me a thief. I said nothing. I just wiped my mouth and apologized. But 3 weeks later, her son knocked on my door and invited me to dinner. What happened that night changed everything. I'm a Latina immigrant. I clean houses for a living. It's honest work, but it doesn't pay much, especially when you're sending most of your salary back home. My mother had been sick for months. The doctor said she needed surgery. Surgery cost money I didn't have, so I worked. Double shifts when I could get them. Sometimes I'd clean 3 houses in one day, my knees aching, my hands raw from chemicals. I stopped buying lunch, started skipping breakfast. Dinner became whatever I could afford at the dollar store: crackers, canned soup, plain rice. I told myself it was temporary, just until Mom got better, just until I caught up. But weeks turned into months and the hunger became a constant companion. A dull ache I learned to ignore. That Tuesday started like any other. I arrived at Mrs. Whitmore's house at 9 in the morning. She lived in one of those neighborhoods where the houses have names instead of just numbers. Stone driveways, manicured lawns that looked like paintings. Her house was 3 stories of white marble and glass, the kind of place that echoed when you walked through it. She wasn't there when I arrived. She'd left a note on the kitchen counter in her sharp, slanted handwriting. Clean the downstairs thoroughly. I have guests coming Thursday. Don't touch anything in my office. I got to work. Vacuumed the living room, dusted the shelves, scrubbed the bathrooms until the tiles gleamed. By noon, my stomach was growling so loud I was afraid the neighbors might hear it. That's when I walked back into the kitchen and saw it. Lunch, still on the table. Mrs. Whitmore must have eaten before she left. There was a plate with salmon, barely touched, grilled asparagus, a piece of artisan bread with butter melting into it, a glass of white wine, half full. It was all just sitting there, abandoned, beautiful. My mouth watered. I knew what would happen to it. She'd come home later, glance at it, and tell me to throw it away. I'd seen her do it before. Plates of food, barely eaten, scraped into the trash like they were nothing. And they were nothing to her. But to me, that salmon was 2 days' worth of meals. I stood there for a long time, staring at it. My hands were shaking, not from fear, from hunger. I thought about my mother, lying in a hospital bed thousands of miles away. I thought about the last time I'd eaten something that wasn't bland, tasteless, cheap. I thought about how no one would know. She wasn't home. The house was empty. It was just me and that plate. So I did it. I picked up the fork and I ate. The salmon was perfect, tender, rich. I closed my eyes and for a moment, I wasn't standing in someone else's kitchen feeling like a criminal. I was just a person eating a meal. That's when I heard the footsteps, sharp, fast, heels on marble. My heart stopped. I turned, fork still in my hand, and there she was, Mrs. Whitmore, standing in the doorway, staring at me. Her face went through about 5 emotions in 2 seconds: confusion, realization, disgust, and finally, rage. "What are you doing?" Her voice was ice. I dropped the fork. It clattered against the plate, obscenely loud in the silence. "I'm sorry, ma'am. Are you eating my food?" She stepped closer, her eyes narrowing. "You're eating off my plate?" "I'm so sorry. I thought..." "You thought what? That you could just help yourself?" Her voice was rising now, sharp and cutting. "I pay you to clean, not to steal my food like some kind of..." She stopped herself, but I knew what word she'd swallowed. I could see it in her eyes. My face burned, tears blurred my vision. but I refused to let them fall. "I'm sorry," I whispered again. "Sorry?" She laughed, bitter and cruel. "Do you know how disgusting that is, eating off someone else's plate? That's just—" She shook her head, looking at me like I was something she'd scraped off her shoe. "People like you come to this country and think you can just take whatever you want. I pay you a salary. If you're hungry, buy your own food." "I know, ma'am, I'm so sorry. It won't happen again." "You're damn right it won't." She crossed her arms, her diamond bracelet catching the light. "Finish your work, and don't touch anything else that belongs to me. Do you understand?" "Yes, ma'am." She stood there for another moment, watching me like she was waiting for me to break down. When I didn't, she turned and walked away, her heels clicking against the floor like a countdown. I stood there trembling, staring at the half-eaten salmon. My stomach was still empty, but now it was filled with something worse than hunger, shame. I finished cleaning in silence. My hands shook as I scrubbed the counters, as I wiped down the mirrors, as I swept the floors. Every time I passed the kitchen, I saw that plate still sitting there. She hadn't touched it, hadn't thrown it away. She'd left it there on purpose, a reminder. When I finally left, the sun was setting. I walked to the bus stop with my head down, my chest tight. I didn't cry. I couldn't. Crying felt like a luxury I couldn't afford. At home, I heated up a cup of instant noodles and sat at my small kitchen table. The apartment was quiet. Too quiet. I thought about calling my mother, hearing her voice, but I didn't. If she heard the sadness in my voice, she'd worry. And she had enough to worry about. So I ate my noodles in silence, and I tried to forget the taste of that salmon, but I couldn't. Not because it was delicious, but because of the way Mrs. Whitmore had looked at me, like I was nothing. 3 weeks passed. I didn't go back to Mrs. Whitmore's house. She didn't call me. I assumed she'd fired me, or at least decided she didn't want me around anymore. I didn't blame her. I picked up extra work where I could. A new client here, a one-time deep clean there. The days blurred together. Wake up, work, sleep, repeat. I stopped thinking about that day, or at least I tried to. Then, on a Wednesday afternoon, someone knocked on my door. I wasn't expecting anyone. I opened the door slowly, cautiously. Standing there was a man I'd never seen before. Tall, maybe in his early 30s, with dark hair and kind eyes. He was holding a bouquet of flowers. "Are you Lucia?" he asked. My stomach dropped. I recognized the last name stitched on his shirt pocket, Whitmore. "Yes," I said carefully. "Who are you?" He smiled, but it was nervous, apologetic. "My name is Daniel. I'm Mrs. Whitmore's son." My heart started pounding. Was he here to threaten me, to accuse me of something else? "I know what happened," he said quickly, as if reading my mind. "A few weeks ago, at my mother's house." I didn't say anything. I just stood there, gripping the door. "My mother told me about it," he continued, "but she told me her version. So I asked the housekeeper who worked there before you. She told me the truth." I blinked. "The truth?" He nodded. "That my mother left food on the table, that you ate some of it, and that she humiliated you for it." My throat tightened. He sighed. "What she did wasn't right. It wasn't okay, and I wanted to apologize. On her behalf and on behalf of myself for not knowing sooner." I stared at him, trying to understand if this was real. "You came here to apologize?" "Yes." He held out the flowers. "And to invite you to dinner at my house as a real apology, not just words." I didn't take the flowers. Why would you do that? He looked down, then back up at me. Because my whole life I've watched my mother treat people like they're beneath her, and I never said anything. I just let it happen. But when I heard what she did to you... He shook his head. I can't let it happen anymore, not without at least trying to make it right. I didn't know what to say. He pulled out a card from his pocket and held it out. This is my address. Tomorrow night, 7 o'clock. Please come, I'll cook. We'll talk, and if you never want to see me again after that, I'll understand. I took the card. My hands were shaking. Why? I asked again. He met my eyes. Because someone has to start treating people the way they deserve to be treated. He left before I could respond. I stood in the doorway, holding the flowers and the card, wondering if I just imagined the whole thing. That night, I didn't sleep much. I kept turning the card over in my hands, reading the address, trying to decide if I should go. Part of me wanted to throw it away, to forget the whole thing. But another part of me, a part I didn't know was still there, was curious. What kind of person apologizes for their mother? What kind of person invites a stranger to dinner just to say sorry? By morning, I'd made my decision. I would go. Not because I thought it would fix anything, but because I wanted to see if kindness like that was real, or if it was just another lie people told to feel better about themselves. Hey, if you're still with me, drop the word respect in the comments. I want to know you're here, and if you're not subscribed yet, do it now. This story is just getting started. The next evening, I stood outside Daniel's house, my heart pounding so hard I thought it might break through my ribs. The address led me to a modest neighborhood, nothing like his mother's mansion. The house was small, warm-looking, with flowers in the front yard and a light glowing in the window. I almost turned around 3 times, but something kept me moving forward. I knocked. Daniel opened the door almost immediately, like he'd been waiting. Lucia, he said, smiling. You came. Thank you. He stepped aside and gestured for me to come in. The house smelled incredible. Garlic, spices, something savory and rich. My stomach growled. I stepped inside, clutching my purse like a shield. The living room was cozy. A couch with soft cushions, bookshelves lined with actual books, not the kind people buy to look smart but never read. Photos on the walls, not professional portraits but real pictures. People laughing, moments captured. I hope you're hungry, Daniel said, leading me toward the kitchen. The table was set for 2. Candles, cloth napkins, and food. So much food. I stared. Rice, black beans, pollo guisado, the kind my mother used to make, fresh tortillas, still warm, a small bowl of pico de gallo. My throat tightened. I researched recipes from your country, Daniel said, sounding almost shy. I'm not sure if I got it right, but I tried. Tears stung my eyes. No one had ever done something like this for me. Not here, not in this country, not anywhere. It looks perfect, I whispered. We sat down. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then Daniel filled my plate, serving me like I was a guest, like I mattered. I took a bite of the chicken. It was good, really good. Not exactly like my mother's, but close enough that it felt like home. How is it? He asked. I looked up at him, and I couldn't hold it in anymore. The tears came, quiet, slow. I set down my fork and covered my face. I'm sorry, I said. No, Daniel said gently. I'm sorry. You shouldn't have to cry over a meal. You should never have been treated the way my mother treated you. I wiped my eyes. Why are you doing this? He leaned back in his chair, looking thoughtful. My mother raised me in a world where people are divided into two categories, people who matter and people who serve. And for a long time, I didn't question it. I just accepted it. He paused. But when she told me what happened the way she told it, she was laughing. She thought it was funny. She said, "Can you believe it? The maid was eating off my plate like a dog." My stomach turned. He continued, and something in me just broke. I realized I didn't want to be the kind of person who laughs at someone else's suffering. I didn't want to be her. "But she's your mother," I said. "She is," he agreed. "And I love her, but that doesn't mean I have to agree with her or enable her." We ate in silence for a while. Then he asked, "Tell me about yourself. Not the version you tell employers, the real you." So I did. I told him about my mother, about the surgery she needed, about working 3 jobs and still not having enough, about the nights I went to bed hungry because I'd sent every dollar home, about the loneliness, the exhaustion, the feeling of being invisible. He listened, really listened, not with pity, with respect. When I finished, he said, "You're one of the strongest people I've ever met." I laughed, bitter. "I don't feel strong. I feel like I'm drowning." "Strength isn't about not drowning," he said. "It's about keeping your head above water even when everything's pulling you under." After dinner, he brought out dessert. Flan, homemade. "I had to watch 5 YouTube videos to get this right," he admitted. I laughed. A real laugh. It felt strange. We talked for hours about life, about family, about the things we'd lost and the things we were still fighting for. When it was time to leave, Daniel walked me to the door. He handed me an envelope. "What's this?" I asked. "Open it when you get home," he said. I hesitated. "I can't take money from you." "It's not charity," he said firmly. "It's what you deserve to have from the beginning. You work hard. You deserve to be treated with dignity. This is just a start." I didn't know what to say, so I just nodded. "Thank you," I whispered. "No," he said. "Thank you for giving me a chance to do the right thing." When I got home, I opened the envelope. Inside was $3,000 in cash and a letter. It said, "Lucia, strength isn't about money, it's about character, and you have more character than anyone I know. Use this however you need. Pay for your mother's surgery, buy yourself food, rest, you've earned it. And if you ever need help, call me. You're not alone anymore. Daniel." I sat on my bed and cried. For the first time in months, they weren't tears of sadness. They were tears of relief. The following week felt like a dream. I sent money to my mother for her surgery. I bought groceries, real groceries, not just instant noodles and crackers. I paid rent without panicking. For the first time in a long time, I could breathe. Daniel and I stayed in touch. He texted to check in, asked how my mother was doing, invited me to coffee. We met at a small cafe near my apartment. He told me about his work. He was a photographer, freelance, trying to build a portfolio. "I've always loved capturing stories," he said. "The real ones, not the polished fake ones people put on social media." "What kind of stories?" I asked. "People," he said. "Immigrants, workers, people who get overlooked, people like you." I smiled. "I'm not that interesting." "You're the most interesting person I know," he said. Over the next few weeks, we became friends, real friends. He helped me with my English. I told him stories about my hometown, my family, the food I missed. He took photos of me at work one day, asked if he could document my life for a project. I said yes. For the first time, I felt seen, not as a maid, not as a worker, as a person. But that peace didn't last long, because one afternoon Daniel's mother found out, and everything exploded. I was at Daniel's apartment helping him organize donations for a local shelter. He'd asked me to help sort through clothes, box up items, label everything. It was simple work, but it felt good, meaningful. We were laughing about something, I don't even remember what, when the door flew open. No knock, no warning. Mrs. Whitmore stormed in, her face red with fury. "Daniel Whitmore, what the hell is going on?" she demanded. Then she saw me. Her eyes went wide, then narrow. "You," she hissed. Daniel stepped between us. "Mom, you need to leave." "Leave? This is about her, isn't it?" She pointed at me like I was evidence in a crime. "You invited that woman into your life?" "Her name is Lucia," Daniel said firmly. "And yes, I did." Mrs. Whitmore laughed, sharp and bitter. "I heard rumors. I didn't believe them, but here you are, playing savior to the help." "She's not the help," Daniel said, his voice rising. "She's a human being, and you treated her like garbage." "I treated her exactly how she deserved after she stole from me." "She didn't steal anything," Daniel shouted. I'd never heard him raise his voice. "She ate food you were going to throw away. She was hungry, Mom, hungry. And instead of showing her kindness, you humiliated her." "I pay her salary." "You pay her barely anything," Daniel shot back. "And even if you paid her $1 million, it doesn't give you the right to treat her like she's less than human." Mrs. Whitmore's face twisted. She turned to me. "This is your fault. You manipulated my son. You're trying to take advantage of him." I'd been silent up until that point, but something inside me snapped. "I didn't manipulate anyone," I said quietly. "Your son has a conscience. That's not manipulation. That's called being a good person." Her mouth opened, closed. "How dare you speak to me like that?" "How dare you speak to anyone the way you do?" I said, my voice steady now. "You humiliated me for being hungry. You laughed at me. You made me feel like I was nothing, but I'm not nothing. I'm a daughter, a worker, a person, and I don't need your approval to know that." The silence was deafening. Mrs. Whitmore looked at Daniel, her eyes filling with tears, fake ones I could tell. "After everything I've done for you," she said, "after everything I've given you." "You gave me money," Daniel said, "but you never gave me love, not real love, not the kind that doesn't come with conditions." She stared at him. "If you continue this friendship, you're no longer my son." "Then I guess I'm not your son," Daniel said. She gasped. "You'd choose her over me?" "I'm choosing to be a decent human being," he said, "something you never taught me." Mrs. Whitmore's face went pale. She looked at me one last time, eyes full of hatred. Then she turned and walked out. The door slammed so hard the walls shook. Daniel exhaled, his hands shaking. "I'm sorry you had to see that." "I'm not," I said. "Thank you for standing up for me." He smiled sadly. It was about time. But the fallout was immediate. By the next day, Mrs. Whitmore had made good on her threat. She cut Daniel off, completely. No more money, no more trust fund, no more family connections. He lost his apartment, the one she'd been paying for. He lost his car. He lost everything that came with being a Whitmore. When he told me, I cried. "You shouldn't have done that," I said. "You lost everything because of me." "No," he said. "I lost nothing. I finally found something real." So if you're still watching, let me ask you this. Do you think Daniel made the right choice Drop your thoughts below, and if you haven't subscribed, do it now, because what happens next is something you won't want to miss. 6 months later, everything had changed. Daniel moved into a smaller apartment, the kind with thin walls and a radiator that clanged at night. He sold most of his things, started from scratch. At first I thought he'd regret it, that he'd resent me, but he didn't. He thrived. Without his mother's money controlling him, he found freedom. He threw himself into photography, started documenting immigrant communities, telling their stories, real stories, not the sanitized versions people wanted to hear, but the truth, struggle, joy, survival. His work started getting noticed. Local galleries, online publications, people responded to the honesty. And slowly he built something that was entirely his. Meanwhile, I found a new job. With the letter of recommendation Daniel had written, I applied to a corporate cleaning company. It wasn't glamorous, but it was stable, benefits, respect, a schedule I could count on. I was able to send more money home. My mother had her surgery. She called me afterward, crying. "Mia, I can walk again without pain." That moment made everything worth it. Daniel and I met for coffee every week, sometimes twice. He became my best friend, my family. We'd sit in the same little cafe talking about everything and nothing. He taught me photography basics. I taught him Spanish phrases. "How do you say I'm sorry in Spanish?" he asked once. "Lo siento," I said. He repeated it, testing the words. "Lo siento, I should have said that to you sooner, for everything my mother did." "You did," I said, "in every way that matters." One day, he showed me his latest project, photos of me, at work, at home, laughing, cooking, living. "I want to call it invisible," he said, "because that's what society makes people like you, but you're not invisible, not to me." I looked at the photos. I barely recognized myself. In his lens, I looked strong, dignified, beautiful. "Is this really how you see me?" I asked. "It's how everyone should see you," he said. The project got accepted into a gallery show. On opening night, I stood in a room full of strangers, looking at giant prints of my face on the walls. Daniel stood beside me, nervous. "What if people don't get it?" "They will," I said, and they did. People stopped, stared. Read the captions. Some cried. One woman came up to me. "Are you her, the woman in the photos?" I nodded. "Thank you," she said, "for letting us see you." But the biggest surprise came later that night. As the crowd thinned, I saw someone standing in the corner, alone, staring at the photos, Mrs. Whitmore. My heart stopped. Daniel saw her too. He tensed. "Do you want me to ask her to leave?" "No," I said. "Let her stay." We watched as she moved from photo to photo. Her face was unreadable. Finally, she turned and saw us. For a moment, we just looked at each other. Then she walked over, slowly. "These are beautiful," she said quietly. Daniel didn't respond. She looked at me. "I didn't know he was this talented." "He is," I said. She nodded. Then, after a long silence, she said, "I came to apologize." I blinked. "What?" "I'm sorry," she said, her voice cracked, "for the way I treated you, for the things I said, for everything. It was the last thing I expected." "Why now?" I asked. She looked at the photos. "Because seeing these, seeing you through his eyes, I realized what I'd done. I didn't just hurt you. I hurt my son. I lost him because I couldn't see past my own pride." Her eyes filled with tears. real ones this time. I don't expect you to forgive me, I don't deserve it, but I needed you to know that I'm sorry. I didn't know what to say. Part of me wanted to stay angry, to hold on to the hurt, but another part of me, the part that had been held together by Daniel's kindness, knew that holding on to anger would only hurt me. I don't know if I can forgive you, I said honestly. Not yet, but I appreciate you saying it. She nodded. That's more than I deserve. She turned to Daniel. I'm proud of you, of this, of who you've become. He didn't smile, but he didn't turn away either. Thank you, he said. She left quietly. After she was gone, Daniel looked at me. Are you okay? I nodded. Yeah, I think I am. Do you think she meant it? I don't know, I said. But it doesn't matter, because I don't need her apology to move on. I've already moved on. He smiled. You're stronger than I'll ever be. No, I said. We're strong together. A few weeks after the gallery show, something unexpected happened. Mrs. Whitmore reached out again, this time through a letter. She didn't ask to see Daniel, didn't ask for forgiveness. She just wrote, I've spent my whole life measuring people by what they have. I see now that I should have measured them by who they are. You showed me that. I'll spend the rest of my life trying to be better. Thank you. Daniel read it and set it aside. What are you going to do? I asked. Nothing, he said. She's on her own journey now. I'm on mine. And that felt right. We didn't need closure from her. We'd already found it in ourselves. Today I'm still working, still sending money home, still building a life. But now I'm not doing it alone. Daniel and I are planning a project together, a documentary about immigrant workers, their stories, their strength. I'll be behind the camera this time, telling the stories I know best, because I'm not invisible anymore, and neither are the people like me. So let me ask you, did Mrs. Whitmore deserve a second chance? Did Daniel do the right thing by walking away from his family's money? Let me know what you think in the comments. And if this story moved you, don't forget to subscribe. I have more stories like this, stories that need to be heard. Thank you for listening. Until next time.